Drove and see the nightlife where they call Atlanta. Southside shows for a couple dollars, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again. It's another Monday Night Brew Party, episode number 58, joined by a very, very special guest for some extreme Todd Monken talk or Jeff Monken talk, whichever one it is.
I thought Todd Monken too, if you want.
Whichever, both of the Monken brothers, but it's Erick Hellwig. He's a stand-up comedian. He's the host of the Bring in the Backups podcast. He's also a producer and I think host for Barely Making It LA as well, and the creator, the man behind Death Lives TV, famous from America's Got Talent. So Erick, thanks so much, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm always fascinated when people think I'm famous from anything. Like that's a hilarious. I mean, and I appreciate it. I'm not shitting on you, but like last time I did a podcast, somebody was like known worldwide. I was like, yeah, bro, I don't need to like hide my face when I go to the grocery store. I still sell discount tickets for a theater to pay my bills. I am not that famous, but no, I appreciate it. Yeah, I do all those things.
Absolutely, man. So let's talk about your podcast real quick. That's kind of how we got connected. So Bringing the Backups, it's a mixture of comedy and football, two of my favorite things ever. And you decided to highlight a new, or not new, I guess old, technically, backup quarterback each week. So kind of take me through that process, how you decided you want to like start a podcast about backup quarterbacks, what the criteria is for these quarterbacks to be selected for your prestigious podcast.
The idea of starting a podcast was simple. I've said this before, but it was the beginning of the pandemic. I was like, I can't be masturbating 97 times before noon. I need something to do. I'm a comedian with no outlet, zero creative outlet. So I was talking with a buddy. His name's Rob Stern. He's actually been a guest on my show. He's a very funny comedian as well. And I had a couple ideas for podcasts, and he was like, whatever you decide to do, it should be what you do in your spare time, because even if your podcast is super successful, you will get sick of it at some point. Mm-hmm. And if it's something that you already like spending your free time doing, it'll be easier in those moments. And as he was saying that, I was watching Coy Detmer touchdowns. Coy Detmer was like a backup quarterback he's the less famous backup brother to Ty Detmer.
Yeah.
So he's the backup to a backup. He's like, didn't even reach his brother's backup status. And but I'm an Eagles fan, so I loved Coy Detmer when I was a kid, and I was like, I love old 90s football. I love the uniforms. I love the throwback like whenever an NFL 1989 playoff game comes on, I like watch the whole thing. Like, so I was like, oh, that'd be a fun thing to do a podcast on. And then I looked it up, and nobody has a podcast about old backup quarterbacks or just like old players that are shitty. The important part is that they suck. Yeah. Like all my friends were like, oh, you should do Tom Brady. I'm like, yeah, and get buried in the fucking algorithm? No, thank you. I want the court. Like you were saying, you watched. By the way, can I curse on here?
Absolutely. There's no fucking rules. The fuck right, shit, right. fuck, whatever you want to say. That's like the thing every single comic does. They're always like, so I was fucking this girl. Oh, but can I curse? Like after you said something bad. No, but yeah. So you said you watched the Sage Rosenfels episode. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like that's the perfect kind of guy where it's like the idea for my podcast is people see the title, they see the name of the quarterback, and they go, oh yeah, like that is what I'm going for every single time. So if they've had too much success, if they've, once you've thrown, like Charlie Batch is probably like the best player that I'll ever have on the, like talk about on the show, like him, maybe Doug Flutie was like a really good backup. Mm-hmm. But I'm really looking for those guys that were like more third stringers that like for a couple seasons were second stringers, like hung on in the league for 13 years, played on 14 teams. That's the sweet spot for the show. What's your favorite like random backup quarterback stat that you've uncovered
through all this so far?
My favorite one, it was Sage Rosenfels, I would say, because in college he threw 10 touchdowns and 29 interceptions, and he still got drafted. And I was like, is this what happens when you don't let black guys play quarterback for 3 decades? Is that like Sage Rosenfels still gets drafted? How the fuck is that guy how did he ever get a shot in the NFL? And it was like, and some guys are, Scott Zolak was like that too. I just did an episode with him like a month ago.
Yeah.
I mean, some guys have sick, like Kellen Clemens. He's like the episode that I have that's dropping tomorrow. He had like crazy good numbers at Oregon. So it's like, it's not all of them, but like randomly some guys are like, they look like they were terrible in college. How did they even, it must have just been like some coach liked something they saw, like they thought they had like a skill set that would translate maybe to a different position, and then people got injured, you know?
Yeah, or were they tall and white? Was that the skill set you're talking about?
Well, look, I mean, it's not like not to, you know, if I talk too long, you'll be able to tell who I voted for. But look, it's Cleo Lemon had the same thing. Like Cleo Lemon was a black quarterback, and like he had horrible numbers at Arkansas State, and he got a shot in the NFL. So it's like, I do think it's beyond. It's not just race. I think it's like, I think there's a thing where once you get to like the 5th or 6th round in the NFL draft, people are like, I know that guy's dad. Like, I think that's how people get drafted or get a shot, is like, it's who you know, or like, you know, a coach on a staff that says, I know his numbers are complete dog shit, but let's give fucking Kelly Holcomb a shot.
Yeah, just throwing out so many names here. I love it. But no, that was funny on that.
It was great too. I could talk for a while about him, but on
the Rosenfels episode, you said 10 touchdowns, like 26 interceptions. He was the number 2 rated quarterback prospect in that class. So, it was like, how fucking bad was that quarterback class? How bad was that
quarterback class? I remember like I had a guest on for the Zolak one, and I was reading his numbers, and I was like, oh yeah, he won ACC Player of the Week twice his senior year, and I was like, he only threw 8 touchdowns. How bad was the ACC that year? Did they only play teams outside of the ACC and lose? Like, how does that happen? Maybe it was like a different, I don't know. Like, I think maybe in the 90s, depending on how old the guy is, like, I think it was a different game too. Like, I think they used to run the ball a lot more. I think like the mentality was like, you get inside the 10, it's if we can't run it in, we don't deserve to score a touchdown. So I think there's just less, generally speaking, less passing touchdowns. But still, there's no excuse for specifically Scott Zolak and Sage Rosenfels. Just abominable, just really, really indefensible college football numbers.
Yeah. Do you have any? Who's your favorite current backup quarterback or like third string guy in the NFL now? Do you have
right
any?
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, well, he shouldn't be a backup, but how about Nick Foles winning the goddamn Super Bowl? So him. I mean, technically Trubisky's a backup right now. I don't think he should be.
He's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a Bears fan. I don't know if you could tell that from my reaction when you said Nick Foles, but
you guys hate him. This is what sucks is like, I was like, why can't we give him back?
I take him. Let's take him. I love it. It's really sucks though, because like all throughout the year, like I had to convince myself. Like I went back and forth. Like at the beginning, I was like, I'm all in on Mitch. Like I didn't understand the Nick Foles thing. And then they go to him, and his first, like, he comes in that leads him to the win. I'm like, okay, maybe he's the guy.
Game.
And then I have to like convince myself, okay, Nick Foles is the guy. And then 3 games later, I'm like, no, fuck this dude. Like, bring Mitch back. And then now I'm just pissed that Mitch is gone. But good for him. And he's probably better off in Buffalo. Like, just appreciate him, Bills Mafia. That's all I can say.
Josh Allen will get injured because that's what happens. Like, he's not going to start every game for 3 seasons.
You know,
he'll get a chance to go in. Trubisky's good. That team is good. So he'll get his third team will be his team.
Third time's the charm. You know what they say.
Yeah. He'll get a shot in Buffalo. He'll prove something, and he'll get a contract somewhere else. I don't know. All the numbers on him were like who the Bears got Dalton now.
Yeah, it's why that don't make sense to me. They're paying him. They're paying him $10 million when he was a free agent last year. They could have paid him $10 million when they decided to pay Nick Foles like 20 or 30. Which it's just like, I don't know.
Well, look, Andy, I'm not going to stand for this Nick Foles slander any longer. Okay, he's the greatest goddamn quarterback in the NFL. He's got the biggest dick. You know he does. He's got a memorable one. Look, you guys are the ones that messed up because
that's true.
First off, the Bears were winning. The Bears were 3-1, and that was the 5th game of the season, right? And Trubisky was having like an okay game.
Yeah,
and they pulled him. First off, if you're winning, you let the guy go. That's number one. Number two, you don't bring Nick Foles in until there's 3 games left in the season. You guys blew your load in the 5th week, and that's on you. Nick Foles, there's one way that Nick Foles is good, and that is you put him in at the absolute last possible moment before the playoffs. And then he wins the Super Bowl. He's shown that's what he does.
Yeah, I love it. We cannot blame anybody but themselves. I'm Ryan Pace's and Matt Nagy's biggest fucking critic. But yeah, just who knew they would fucking show their hand in the 4th game of the fucking year and it backfire. But anyway, enough about the Bears. Right. So that's your favorite right now. Do you have a favorite backup of all time?
Yeah, I mean,
like a rotation or what?
Look, my favorite backup of all time, I already mentioned him. It's the first episode I ever did on my podcast, which is Coy Detmer. And I loved him because it's so much of it's just when you were a kid, what happened? Like, what are moments you remember watching a game? And I remember watching the Eagles go into Green Bay on Monday Night Football, and it was Coy Detmer's first start, his rookie season in 1997. I was 12. And the Eagles lost, but it was close. And Coy Detmer had this touchdown celebration where he would pull like a sock out of his pants and like pretend to whip his dick. And he did it like twice. And then Brett Favre got mad at him. And then Brett Favre like obviously brought the Packers back and then did it to Coy Detmer. And they were like fighting. They were like battling each other with it was not playful. Like he did not like it. He found it was disrespectful. And I was like, why is Brett Favre fighting with like this like 7th round draft pick out of who gives a shit? Like Coy Detmer's like 5'10", like 140 pounds. Like at one point, like John Madden, I remember going, he goes like, this Coy Detmer, he's like Brett Favre with no talent. And I was like, what's the most hilarious way to describe a quarterback? So I was like, I love him. I just loved him. And then he stayed on the Eagles for like another 7 or 8 years, but he was like the 3rd string quarterback. And he held field goals. And I remember like every time David Akers would come out for a field goal, I'd be like, perfect hold. Like he really, and actually I remember there was an article written that was like, no, legitimately Coy Detmer is the best holder in the NFL. He does a thing with the ball where he angles it. And David Akers had like a 92% field goal percentage for the field goals that Coy Detmer hit. And he was like 80% for the rest of his career. And he's like a borderline Hall of Fame kicker. He's probably one of the top 5 kickers I think of all time. That's a fucking Coy Detmer stat. David Akers' field goal should have a little asterisk, and then right underneath it, Coy Detmer in caps was my holder because he was the best holder in the NFL.
Put it on the plaque.
Put it on the plaque. My goal in life is to get Coy Detmer on the podcast. He doesn't have an email or an Instagram, so I can't get hold of him.
Coy Detmer hit Eric up. That would be absolutely electric content. So it's draft week. Mm-hmm. Is there anybody in this class that you can kind of see like panning out to just be that career backup, the next Coy Detmer or Kellen Clemens or what have you?
Yeah, anybody not in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
and maybe a couple guys in the first 2 rounds.
In the first round.
Yeah, like I always think it's funny. Like maybe you're like a big draft guy, but like so many of the people I talk to who like are, because I'm obviously just like me and you, like I'm talking to a lot of people who have sports and comedy podcasts. Mm-hmm. And everybody's been like, I had a bunch of people being like, man, we'd love to have you on the show, but after the draft, we're getting ready for the draft. Like everybody's like prepping for the draft. I'm like, are you on a team? Like, what do you have to prep for? You just watch it and then talk about it. Like what? But like, I don't pretend to know anything other than like, that guy looks good. Oh, that guy looks good too. Like the last draft I think I watched was when they drafted McNabb in 90, when the Eagles drafted McNabb.
Throwbacks.
and the Eagles fans booed him, and they were like, "Give us Ricky Williams." And then like 2 seasons later, it was obvious that Ricky Williams was not going to be a great player, and McNabb was. And I was like, okay, then it's like a crapshoot. And so I just kind of like, yeah, I don't care. I'll read whoever my team drafted later. People are like, Justin Fields is dropping, Trey Lance is right. I'm like, oh, who cares? Let the smart nerds figure out who they should draft. I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like football has been taken over by nerds. That's why
it's all analytics, numbers, and all that good stuff now.
Nerds. It's nerds ruining the game. Yeah. All right. And here's why. I'll give you I think if a team wins the Super Bowl, the players, like the GM, should not be allowed to change anybody on the roster for a year. Like unless someone dies, like in the offseason, that exact team. Because like it's like when you're playing like basketball with your like friends, and like if you're like running court and like you beat somebody, those 5 players play the next team no matter what. Unless you got to go, you're like you get to run it back. But like the Eagles get to win the Super Bowl and then fucking not start Nick Foles the next season. That's always going to come back to that. In case you're not figured out my.
Oh yeah, I am very very pro Nick Foles over there. I get it.
It's infuriating because it's like the fan perspective is like he just won the Super Bowl. I hugged my dad in the street and he said he loved me. Can you just let him be quarterback next year? Like it's not that complicated. But they're like, oh no, the contract of Carson. I'm like, fucking trade Carson Wentz. He won. I don't care if the Eagles go 0-16 next year. I want to see Nick Foles as quarterback. That's all I care about. Yeah. It was so like, that's what I mean by like nerds taking over is like, I remember listening to I listen to Philly sports radio, even though I live in LA, I have like an app on my phone. And I was listening to like sports guys being like, oh no, the right move is to say goodbye to Nick. And I'm just like, what kind of fan are you? Like, what kind of joy is that? Where's your joy? We only get one go in this life. Okay. I don't believe in God. I think when we're over, it's lights out. So like can Nick Foles just play quarterback for one more season. And then if he sucks, he sucks. Like I'd like to ride this train into hell. We just won the Super Bowl. I don't care if Alshon Jeffrey can't run anymore. He's the receiver. Nick Foles is the quarterback. Let's just see if we can do it again, baby. Why didn't Trent Dilfer get another shot? Because they thought Elvis Gerbach was better than them. How did that work out for the Ravens? Anyway, all right. Look, I've made my point. Nerds are ruining the game.
What a fucking rant. I can just let you go the whole time. I don't think I have to say anything else.
Eric, it's been 5 hours.
You need to wrap it up. So I guess, you got your wish. So they traded Carson Wentz, but Nick Foles isn't there anymore. But yeah, that was always such a weird dynamic to me. Is you had Carson Wentz is supposed to be the savior of the franchise, the first round pick, can't stay fucking healthy. Was having a great year when he got hurt, and Foles comes in, and it didn't matter. Like the team just seemed to play way better with him, and then he just kind of got thrown to the side. It's really hard. Like, oh yeah, you just won the Super Bowl for us, Super Bowl MVP. Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
He was there the next season, but like he started for a couple games, and then Wentz was healthy, and then Wentz took over the starting gig, and I was like, it would have been better just from a understanding like human emotion. The better thing to do would have been like Nick Foles is the starter until he gets hurt, because then he's going to get hurt because he's Nick Foles. He always gets hurt. He can't play a whole season. And then Carson Wentz gets to come in and be the backup story. Like people love that. Like that's how, if you want to be a Philly quarterback, like you have to have a story that people root for. Like that's part of it, And like, what was Carson Wentz's story? I killed deer. I dominated a bunch of kids at like North Dakota State, so I'm playing against like people like me, like throwing touchdowns. Like, I'm at cornerback. Oh, he hit him right in the numbers. Yeah, it's easy. The guy was 10 yards behind the DB because it's not a real school. And then like, yeah, like he wasn't rootable. You could have given him a rootable story by just sitting him for 10 games.
So you have this guy versus Foles, who's like, oh yeah, he went out on a like sabbatical into the desert of the woods, just did a bunch of mushrooms. He's got by the way, he has a huge dick. I think I want to root for this guy.
He went to like Joshua Tree, got bit by a rattlesnake, like almost died from the venom, but like came back and like wandered. It's like, yeah, no, it was. No, look, I'm not going to do my act, but I said this recently on a podcast where I was like, they had a statue of Nick Foles at the stadium when Carson Wentz was there. So like they got rid of Nick Foles. Carson Wentz is still the quarterback, and there's a fucking statue of Nick Foles that Carson Wentz has to walk by on the way to the stadium. It's like, dude, that would be like if there was a statue of a guy that my wife was with, like right before me, like in the kitchen, and I just had to walk by it every time I wanted to get like something to eat. It's like, we're going to fight about it. Like a statue of the other guy. Like they should have just traded Carson Wentz right away. Like it was never, ever going to work. It's also Philly. It's the first Super Bowl. It's like a crazed fan base. Like, they just set him up to fail. And I honestly, I'm not mad at Carson Wentz. I feel bad for him. Like I wouldn't have resented it if they traded him to the Dolphins and he won 3 Super Bowls. Good for him. It wasn't meant to be in Philly.
Yeah. Part of me likes to think like every day walking by that statue, going to the locker room, he's just like fucking like flicking it off, or it's like, hey Carson, we found another bra on the Foles statue. You know anything about that? Yeah, it's graffiti over there.
Somebody keeps throwing a bed sheet over the over the statue, and it's weird. It's the same linens you use. I just don't know. Somebody's going to your house, looking at the linens on your bed, and then buying a separate one and throwing over this statue every Sunday morning before games. That's weird.
Weird. All right, man. Let's talk a little bit about your stand-up, because I know you said you didn't want to do your act, but I'm very curious about your act. So you're doing comedy with the pandemic. You know, you started the podcast. So like, how long did you go, without doing, live stand-up, and how hard was that for you? I know you talked about like being like trying to be creative and trying to find an outlet.
Yeah. So the last date I think I did stand up was on like March 14th, and I was prepping because I actually had a comedy festival in North Carolina on the 16th of March 2020 that was pretty cool. Like I was going to be auditioning for JFL, which is a big deal. Like I had like it's just for laughs if your audience.
Yeah, I know it.
I know. I don't know if like your audience is full of like comic lingo.
Junior football league.
Yeah, no. I was like kind of prepping for that, and I've been doing a lot of shows, and then the Corona stuff started to hit. Like literally within a couple days, my wife was like, "I don't think you're going to get to go to North Carolina." I was like, "I will kill every person in North Carolina with coronavirus. I'm auditioning for JFL. I don't care." And then like the next day we get the email, we're going to put it off. And then obviously like everything else, because, I do a lot of festivals. Those things get booked like 6 or 7 months in advance. So those cancellations were just rolling in. And it was so damn depressing for the first 3 months of the pandemic. I mean, beyond just what was happening in the world. It was just like, it just felt hopeless. And like I said, that's why I started the podcast, but it's been 14 months since I've been on stage. My first show, I'm doing this Rubber City Comedy Festival in Akron. So I booked a bunch of shows around the Akron, Cleveland area.
Yeah, I saw that. I was looking at your set list. I was like, oh, a little tour of Ohio. Good for you.
A little Ohio tour, yeah. My first show back, because I'm at like the Polish Legion of American Veterans in like Beechwood, Ohio or something. I'm like, I don't even know what. It doesn't even matter. Yeah. Like, it's just, I just feel like, somebody said this to me recently. The crowds will never have been better, and all of our stand-up will never have been worse. Because stand-up is not like riding a bike. Like, if you don't do it for a year, you fucking suck. Like, your timing's gone. So I don't think it's going to be particularly good, but I think the shows will be fun because for most comics, I imagine it's going to be their first time back on stage in a long time. And that's, for anybody who does it for a living, it's your outlet back. I mean, it's going to be fun.
So what's you kind of take me through your writing process, if you don't mind, real quick? Like, has that been hard for you through the pandemic? Like through these 14 months, have you still been like, writing jokes and still preparing material as if you'd be going up on stage? Or is that harder for you, like knowing like I don't have a gig scheduled until, May?
No, to be honest, like since I started the podcast, I don't plan stuff out to say on my podcast jokes wise, but I'll just give myself like topics. I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about this, and this. Mm-hmm. That's not that dissimilar from how I write stand up. Usually it's an idea. Maybe I have like an idea for a tag or something I want to throw at the end.
Right.
But I'm usually just going up and kind of just talking about something that I've been thinking about, and I record myself, and then I kind of like, you just kind of whittle it down from what is really just like in my phone. It'll be like, banging Mystique. I have like a thought that I'd had, and then I'll talk about it, and then I'll be like, oh, this is the part that like relates to other parts of my stand-up. That could be a lead-in, and it just kind of like comes together over the course of usually a few months of doing shows, multiple, 5 or 6 nights a week doing multiple shows. Like you kind of carve an act out of that. And it's fun, man. Like when you get new jokes, when you're like, oh, this is the way to say it. This is the way that it works. Like it's not, a lot of people think it's just talking. Like they're just like, you just go up and you're just funny. And it's like, no, the part of the art is making it sound like it's the first time you're saying it, but you've said it like hundreds of times usually. By the time it's like really in your act, or if you're like putting it online for people to see it, it's usually not off the cuff. And you can tell when something's off the cuff because like there's like a light in the comic's eyes as they're doing it. They're like, oh my God, like I'm improvising something. But like usually we're, depending on the show, if it's a bigger show, you're usually doing stuff that's been honed for a long time.
Yeah. So I took a sip of that beer and forgot what I was going to say. Fuck.
Jeff Munkin, Todd Munkin.
Yes, Army football, triple option. Where do you think they go from here?
I could answer that question, but I don't think you were really asking it.
So when you're on stage, how much of your shit is like improvised? Like, is it kind of just depend on the crowd and like when you get a feel? Like, because I've watched most of your videos, you do some crowd work. I like when you were clapping back at that lady that was heckling you about Beyonce. That was pretty funny.
Oh, I'm sure I did that. I don't remember doing that, but I'm sure it's online somewhere. So I believe you.
Yeah, I
believe you that I did that.
So
I have a Beyonce. I think I know. Is that in my? I have a Beyonce.
It's on your YouTube. So you were talking about like Jay-Z cheating on Beyonce.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was like, she's just his wife, and it was just. It was fun. It's like you aren't her friend. If you're at this show right now, she wouldn't even stop in your town to take a shit or something like that. Like that.
Sure.
I think that's what
I got it. I got you.
But yeah, that's my question. So like how, like when you're trying to, how do you like read the crowd, knowing like when to like, I don't know what I'm fucking trying to say here. Like how much improvisation is in your act versus like written down stuff?
It depends. It's show to show. I mean, usually the advice I give to like newer comics, I guess this is a good way to answer it, is like, when in doubt, just say exactly what you're feeling. Like that is always funny. Like the crowd is more savvy than it even realizes. Like if you're saying stuff that's untrue, or if you're feeling uncomfortable or something, like they can sense it without you saying anything, or without them even thinking to themselves, this guy's uncomfortable. It's just like, it's a vibe that they like take in. So when you're uncomfortable on stage, you should just say, I'm uncomfortable on stage. I am nervous. What do I do with my hands? Like you should say that if that's what you're thinking. It's almost like a meditative state of like when you're like really paying attention to your breath. Like when you're on stage, you should be kind of paying attention to like what you're feeling and like what the audience is doing. Like if there's a dude eating a slice of pizza in the front, like, fuck your joke. There's a dude eating pizza. Other people around are seeing him eating pizza. Like, you can't blast through that stuff.
Right.
And I in the beginning, like, I think in the beginning of stand-up, you don't know, like, if, especially like when a joke doesn't work or something, you can't tell if it's your fault or the audience's fault. So sometimes an audience sucks and you'll blame yourself, and, you let a bad show live in your mind for longer than it should. And then sometimes you suck and you blame the audience, and you're like, man, fuck this audience, you suck. And then you like watch the tape back and you're like, you muddled through the setup and you messed it up and it didn't make sense. So like, I think the longer you do stand up and the more you honestly bomb and aren't afraid of it, the quicker your recognition is of like, okay, either there's something off with me or there's something off with the crowd.
Right.
And when there's something off with the crowd, I'm like, let's fucking go, bitches. Like, I don't like it when crowds are just being shitty and petty and weak. So I let them know. And also, like, I've lived in New York and LA for a long time. So it's, you know, let's say it leans a little left in those two places. So in that way, I'm like maybe a little, I consider myself centrist, but you know, if you talk to people here, they think I'm to the right of Attila the Hun. But you know, I think I just like exist in a world of nuance, which, you know, again, not a good thing to be in the places I've lived. So like, I think even that just like kind of sets me apart a little bit from most people they're seeing on shows, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's not hard to like feel like I'm offending people, because usually just I'm being myself and somebody has a look on their face or saying something. So I'd say for me, like even when I'm doing like a set and I'm like, I know what I want to say, I end up improvising a lot because I think my stuff is evoking reactions from people maybe more than some other sets. Like I'm not going for clapter. Like I'm just trying to say what I really think. And usually when you do that, people are either going to really agree with you or really disagree. And that comes out audibly often.
What's that feeling like when you kind of like first start to realize that you're bombing? Like, is it kind of just like, oh fuck, like how do I win the crowd back? Or like, is there a point where it's just like, is this so far gone? Like I just can't even do anything.
Picture drowning and then someone stabs you in the middle of drowning. That's kind of what it feels like. Picture double drowning. No, it sucks. Obviously, like bombing is not fun. But you get used to it. Like you really do. For the first couple of years of stand-up, you're just learning how to like not be afraid of silence, how to be comfortable with yourself on stage. Like I was joking about like, where do I put my hands? But like for a year I thought about that. Like, I don't know where does my hand go when I'm done. It just hangs by my side. Does it always look like this? Like you're just nervous. You're not comfortable on stage. So yeah, the feeling of bombing in the beginning, it's the worst thing that can happen. Like it's not, I did improv for a long time. One of my great shames in this life.
all white
real good at improv in my 20s. Real good. So in that way, I guess when I started doing stand-up, I was like really 28 when I started taking stand-up seriously and doing it every night. I wasn't like, I didn't have zero stage presence. I wasn't starting off at zero. Like some of it translates from improv to stand-up. But like the feeling of bombing is so much worse when you're by yourself. Like I'd bombed. I was new to comedy when I started improv when I was 21, 22. I'd moved to New York and we would bomb, but you're with like 8 other people. You know, like I remember like I used to do an improv show in a sushi restaurant. We had like a residency in a sushi restaurant. And it was like literally like they would just bust a table and then move it and they'd be like, go. We'd be like, so people are just eating and then we're like, excuse me. They're just like, oh fuck. They're just ruining people's dinners. And so I remember bombing in that sushi restaurant for like months. We just go back every week just to bomb again. Bomb. But we would go get drunk afterwards and hang out. And it's a team bombing.
Right.
Be like, oh, they just didn't like the scene. They didn't like the world we built. When you're doing stand up, it's like, no, they don't like you, and it's just you. And unless you're like a savant, you're bombing more than you're doing well in the beginning. So if you really love stand up, you like the thing you live off of in the beginning is like somebody who you look up to in the community being like, that was a great joke. Nice set. Even if it was like an okay set, like little compliments like that would really be fuel in the beginning because I didn't have that many great shows. I was mostly bombing at mics and doing okay on shows. And then once you start to get better and start having good shows, and now I'm one of the better comics on sets. Now I'm getting into comedy festivals and getting opportunities from my stand-up. Then you start to feel the other side of it, which is fun. Like it's fun to know that you can crush it. Like you can watch a comic in a room and just look at the room and be like, I'm going to do really well in 5. Like, I know that I'll do well here.
Yeah.
And like, that's not a feeling you have for the first maybe 5 or 6 years of doing it. So, or at least I didn't. So yeah, like the bombing, just like now when I bomb, I'm like, it's nothing like when I used to before, because I'm still usually getting some laughs.
Yeah.
And it's not as scary because I've already done it a million times.
Absolutely. So I feel like there's like no other, like the best way to ever consume comedy would be in the back of a fucking room with all the other comedians like on that show. Like I imagine you guys just have a great time, you know, listening to each other's sets. Like I'm sure learning, taking notes, and just laughing and shooting the shit with your friends. So you said you started doing improv when you were like 21. So when was the first time you like got up like and did stand up? Was that all like in that same time frame there?
Yeah, it was. So when I moved to New York, I was doing everything. Like I was doing improv, I was doing stand up, I signed up for a sketch class. I was taking like a viral videos class, which is hilarious. The idea of like a class of how you make your videos, get 1 million, like that's a thing. But at the time, like it made sense. This was like 2000. When was Obama getting elected the first time? What year was that? 2008?
Yeah, wait.
08. So like viral videos were like, people were like really trying to like monetize. Everybody wanted a viral video.
Yeah.
But I was doing all of that, and stand-up was brutal in New York. People were so mean.
Yeah.
I was still young, and like I did not have a lot of confidence, and I had no stage presence. I literally had like my jokes were like fucking like just probably like Will Ferrell lines from movies I liked. And I remember just getting like really roasted by other comics. Like at mics, people would be so mean. And then meanwhile, I was taking an improv class, and like girls liked me, and I was like dating people. I was like, oh, this is not even close. This community is way easier to hang out with. I just have to pretend to like musical theater, and I can hang out with improv people all night. And the stand-ups are just like methed out psychopaths fresh off a murder coming to like make fun of me because I'm like, I moved to New York to pursue my dreams. So I kind of got a little scared off of stand up for like, I'd say like 5 or 6 years. I was really focusing on improv, and that's not all bad because, you know, every relationship I treasure in my life is from improv. I met my wife doing improv, like a lot of my close friends. So I don't hate it for that reason, but once I had more confidence and I stepped back into stand-up, I just realized that the people doing that or acting like that at mics are really just insecure about themselves and their own place. And I just didn't have. Sometimes I get hard on myself. That's a weird way to say it. That's not the way to say it. I'm hard on myself because I'm like, I wish I had started stand-up sooner. You know, I wish I had like known right away this is the path I wanted to go on. But the truth is, I don't think I was like mature enough or honestly funny enough to like, if I had really gone full into stand up when I was 21, I think I would have burned out in a couple of years. So I think it worked out for the best. And I'm not going to be a young success story if it happens for me. But, you know, I like what I'm doing. And the improv stuff is, you know, whatever. I booked commercial auditions, so I guess it worked out.
There you go. Do you remember the first joke you ever told on stage?
No. The first time I ever did stand up was a week before I moved to New York to do it. Like I moved to New York. Like I had pretty much zero experience doing comedy of any sort other than I had a radio show in college with my friends. Mm-hmm. But I remember just telling myself like, I can't move to New York having never done it. Like I have to try it. Mm-hmm. So I went to what's it called? Kazi's? I think Kazi's. It's in Newport News. Might not be there anymore, especially after the pandemic. But I put my name in the thing. I had 2 friends with me. And, you know, like it was like a 3-hour mic, and I was the last person to go up. So I was drinking, but I just was getting more nervous as the night went. So by the time I went up, I'd had like 5 Long Island iced teas.
Oh fuck!
And I was only drinking those because I don't know how to drink. I was like, it was like the only drink I'd heard of when I was 21. I was like, I'll have 5 of those. So I'm just like smashed. I'm so drunk by the time I went up, and all I remember was not being able to get the microphone out of the the holder. Like I couldn't figure out how to take it out.
Yeah.
So I think I just talked into it with the stand and like moved around with the stand. And when I got back off stage, I vaguely remember my friends being like, "We need to get you home."
Yeah, we need to
I was more like concerned about my health than how I did on stage. So yeah, that was so I don't remember anything I said.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah, definitely. If people were laughing, it was not at my really great take on Obama.
Yeah, whatever it was.
No, it was I was a drunk idiot.
Yeah. How long would you say it took you to be like truly comfortable on stage?
With improv, it took me like 3 years. That really was like my first time being on stage ever. I didn't act or anything in high school or college. So I was like 3 years into improv. I started getting good at that, and I also started teaching improv, which helped a lot because when you like step outside of it and try to give other people lessons, it makes you kind of analyze what you're doing on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I got real confident then. So I would have been like 24, 25. And then, like I said, about 3 years later, I started doing stand-up, and I was like, confidence, not the right word, but I was not afraid of bombing as much as like I would be at mics with comics who'd been going for 2 or 3 years, and they would be more nervous than me. And I was like in my second or third week. And that's just because I had 7 years of being on stage. You know, when I was doing improv every night, and I was on repertory teams, and then I was teaching, and then I was, whatever. Just I was really pursuing improv very hard. So yeah, I think I was as far as stand-up goes, my journey's like a little weirder just because it's like it really is tied to the improv stuff. But yeah, for most people, I think it takes a couple years until you like you can plant your feet for 5 minutes and not nervously rock back and forth as you're telling your shitty jokes.
Do you have like a nightmare gig story that you like to tell? You have one that sticks out? It's like, this is the worst place I've ever been.
One time I went to a comedy festival. I won't say where it was, but let's just say it was like an American outpost. So like far away from most of where America is. And they had a venue upstairs that they didn't book properly, I guess, or that canceled on them or something. So they were like, we're just going to do the bar downstairs. The bar downstairs is fine. And the bar downstairs was a bar that let in homeless people. And the person running the bar, the bartender, was homeless too. And so I got on stage and I saw a dude peeing into a bottle. And I was like dick out. Like I saw his dick in the front of the plastic Coke bottle peeing in. Like he wasn't peeing into the tin. It was like into the plastic Coke Zero bottle. He's just right in front of me. There's a bathroom behind him, 20 feet, and he's just pissing while I'm like before I even spoke. Yeah. And all I said was they gave me a 10-minute spot. Again, this is an outpost. I traveled to this. I got on a plane and was like, I'm going to X.
Yeah.
And I told one joke. I said, you guys are a great crowd. I've never done stand-up at a methadone clinic before. And they started booing and then clapping. And then I remember the bartender was like, I think the bartender was like trans or something. And like, she got on the bar and like pulled her pants on and was like, yeah, baby. And like started like shaking her ass at me. And I was like, I remember looking over at the other comics who were just like, had this look on their face. Because the first guy had gone and tried to do material and bombed, obviously. And then the other comics were looking at me like, what is he going to try to do? Like, there's nothing to do. And so it was a 10-minute set. I just looked at my phone. I started a timer, which I don't normally do. And I just stood on stage for 10 minutes and didn't say a word. I said that one joke, and then I stood on stage for 10 minutes. And they were reacting, and like somebody started playing music. So it was just like I was just standing in the corner of a bar, but in my head I was like, I refuse to I'm not going to do my material. I'm not going to do crowd work for this madness. And I fucking flew here. I'm going to be on stage for 10 minutes. And like, if anything, it's a lesson to the people that are booking this show that like, I'm going to stand on stage for 10 minutes and not tell a joke because this audience doesn't deserve me to speak a word. This is like, that's how bad the situation is. So I use it as like an exercise in like, you talked about like being comfortable in your own skin. It's hard to stand for 10 minutes and not tell a joke. But I forced myself to do it almost as like a fuck you to the people that like let that situation happen.
That's crazy. I can't even imagine just standing there and
it was a
microphone. I can't even imagine.
It was a bad show, man. It was a really bad. It was a bad scene.
it didn't sound great.
It didn't get better throughout the night. I mean, you think that's bad? Like people came up and then still tried to do jokes afterwards, and like people got in fights. Like it was insane. It was just insane. Like it was a bar full of drunk homeless people like doing drugs. Like that's like it wasn't a show. They should have just canceled the show. But the fact that they didn't, I mean, I will say all the comics on that show, like we laughed about it really hard for the rest of the time we were in this place. I'm being very careful not to burn a bridge here.
But I'm not trying to blow up your spot or anything.
I don't know how much reach your podcast has. There's like 50 million people listening to every episode. Like every
absolutely. It's millions and millions of listeners. It's huge. So watch out. So what's the farthest you ever had to drive to a gig? Were you ever in that scene, like driving, hitting the road, or were you all just kind of like planes and flying out different places?
I drove to a festival in Arizona once, which was like maybe 10 hours away from where I live. I think that's the most. Like, I'll be honest. Like, I don't get booked on the road that much. I just book myself in comedy festivals and do that. So usually I'm flying. Okay. Or it's a festival that's close enough to just, get there by car. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember one time I drove up to upstate New York for a gig that a friend had. And that was one of the few times. I mean, I can count on my hand the number of times I've been like paid properly like a full comedian. I did this one show in upstate New York, and then after the show, someone handed me $350. I was like, great job. And I was like, it feels wrong. I almost wanted to like hand the money back. I was like, this is free. I did this for free. Like the times where I've actually driven somewhere and gotten paid are like, they do stick out in your mind a lot because it's a cool feeling. I don't get it that often. Probably the Arizona was the furthest.
Absolutely. I'm always interested by like comedians, and because there are certain ones that'll pull off some like ridiculous road trip or something like that, and I didn't know if that was your MO or not. But so let's talk a little bit about your appearance on America's Got Talent. I know you talked about in the beginning, like world renowned, world known all around the world. So you were Death. You appeared on America's Got Talent. So let's talk about Death a little bit. Death Lives TV. How did you kind of like come up with that character? What was the inspiration for that?
So I have a writing partner. His name's Chris Aurelio, and we came up with that in maybe like 2010, like early on in my comedy career in New York. And it was like a sketch character. There was this monthly show called Welcome to Hell at a place called the People's Improv Theater where we used to perform. And I just would like go on stage as Death in this makeup, and the idea was like he would always try something artistic and fail. So he would like rap, or he would do Shakespeare, or do like beatnik poetry, whatever. Like it was something new every month, and we did it for, like I said, years. And then I can't remember, it was like maybe 2016 or something. New Year's rolled around, and Chris was like, "We're writing a pilot for this character." And I was like, "All right." And I just gotten like an agent, so I was like, "Oh, that's a good idea. I should probably have a pilot." That's what they keep saying I need to do. So we wrote a pilot, and then we were like, "Fuck it, let's shoot it." And so then we saved up our money and shot it, and made this thing that's got like a little bit of attention. And there's a thing, I don't even know if they do it anymore in Hollywood now, but they used to package stuff, which is like, I guess, got like It ended up being like a thing they stopped doing because they thought it was like immoral to the creators, but whatever. Anyway, the thing got packaged, and it was like kind of cool because all of a sudden I was like, oh, maybe this is going to be a TV show. Like this is like the beginning of the process of that happening. Mm-hmm. So we were like, oh, well, let's do like a one-man show for Death. So then we did that. And then I was like, oh, now we should have like a Instagram page. So we just kept like getting ideas of like other creative stuff to do with the character, all with the idea of like, it's just him trying stuff. Like that's always the comedic premise, trying and usually being bad at it. And then somebody from AGT, her name's Nyla Durrani, who's now a friend, found the video online and just reached out to me. Like I wish I had like the cool story of like I waited but like somebody just found it and then asked me to audition for the judges, which is like not the judges, like the executive producers of the show. And I did that and then I got it. And then what you see on TV is not what happened when I was there. But it was a really cool experience, and obviously, like I got a bunch of Instagram followers from it, and a really cool credit, and it was a fun. Even though I got booed, I should say I got booed off the show. I was booed off stage, X'd off the show. Yeah, I was booed and X'd, and then cheered. So like I got like I got everything that you can get from being on that show. It was a pretty. I joked around, but like millions of people have watched it. I mean, it's a pretty memorable. Memorable appearance, I would say.
Dude, what was that like getting the 4 X's? Because like I remember you from that show, and then when I like was talking to you and I realized I was like, wait, holy shit! Like I remember watching that fucking episode.
Yeah.
And like I feel like it's more impressive to get the 4 X's than it is anything else. Because like, talk about that. What was that like, dude?
So the whole time they're like. There's a couple months from when they're like, you're going to be on the show to like you actually being on the show where you're like running your jokes and you're writing your bit and it's getting passed by producers and stuff. And the whole time I'm going like, I'm going to get booed off the show. Like, there's no way. This is clearly like, this is an act you bring on to get booed.
Yeah.
And honestly, like that's also what the character used to do. Like the fun of the live show in real life is like people don't like Death in the beginning, and by the end they're rooting for him, you know. But like it's not because he's amazingly talented; it's because it's a funny concept. Anyway, so like right before I go on stage, one of the producers comes up to me, a smaller producer, not like the, you know, like Simon or anything, but they're like, "This is really funny what you're about to do. I mean, we've been watching your tape, and this is the funniest thing that's ever been on the show." She just whispers that to me. I'm in my death makeup. Terry Crews is right here. I'm literally about to go on stage. And in my head, because I'm a comic, I'm like, I think I'm about to win America's Got Talent. Like I just forgot that for months I've been telling myself like, you're going to get booed, stay in character. Like the whole point is to get booed. Like that is the joke, is that he's not good at stand up. But I just forgot. And then the guy that's going right in front of me is like a singer. So that happens. Like 3 minutes later, the guy in front of me goes out, and he's a singer, and he's got a great voice. He's from like Hawaii or something. And people are crying when he's singing. And then the judges are like, "Who did you sing for today?" And they go, he goes, "My father. He died. He died 6 months ago." And he literally goes, "Death took him too soon." And then he walks off stage, and they're like, "You're up?" I'm like, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna lose." These fuckers put him right in front of me. And what's crazy is like, so my actual, you know, they cut my act to look like I got no laughs. But what really happened is like I went on stage and I got laughs. And then I told a joke about killing everybody's grandparents. And then I got boos. And then they started Xing me. So I was really on stage for like maybe like 7 or 8 minutes. I think like on the show, that part is only like 45 seconds, and then they do the backstory on both ends, right? Mm-hmm. But like when you watch the show, for some reason, because they kind of cut, like I said, they cut my thing to make it look a certain way, but they kept in the part where when I walk out to the stage, you can hear people booing me. And they're booing me because in real life, 5 seconds before, somebody just said I killed someone's dad. Yeah. And that was like the intro for me to come out. So like, I don't know why. I think they just like, I honestly think an editor just like wasn't paying attention and like, but I think that's so funny. That's the funniest part to me is that I walk out, somebody goes, "Oh my God." And then you hear the audience going, "Oh, oh." Yeah, that's a little taste of what really happened when I was there. But people they're like, "Are you pissed that they didn't show the laughs?" I'm like, no, because I knew that they're making a show, like they need a story. And I was just like, I just wanted to be on the show. Like anything for the character is good. It's good exposure. And the fact that they gave me like commercial to commercial, just my character was like so much more than I ever would have expected from it. Like I literally thought they'd show me for 5 seconds and then like a hook comes on and pulls me and they're like, but they gave me the whole backstory. And literally like as soon as I got off stage, the camera crew was like, "Come with us, let's shoot some more stuff." So as soon as I got booed, I walk off stage. I'm like, for the next 2 hours, I'm walking around the theater shooting more bits as the character. Like they ended up shooting me basically the whole day that I was there. So it really was like it was like a test of professionalism, because you do have adrenaline after getting booed by 4,000 people. Like I'm like, I wanted to fight. Like I was in a bad mood. Like it doesn't feel good, even if you know it's gonna happen and you're like aiming for it. But yeah, it ended up being like a really cool feather in the cap. And I almost one guy, I always forget this part. So I was shooting. There's a scene where like Death is watching the stage in the version that aired on TV. So that got shot like 10 minutes after I was on stage. And so in real life, I do the joke about killing everybody's grandparents. The audience gets mad. They like turn on each other. I get X'd. We run upstairs. I'm in the death makeup and there's a full camera crew with me. And some guy walks up and goes, "Hey man, that joke you told about killing my grandmother, I didn't fucking appreciate that. I'll see you in the parking lot." And I was like, "How about we go right now?" And I started walking towards him. I'm in full death makeup. Like I was like ready to fight. And like the producers had to separate us so that I wouldn't fight this guy. It's so dumb. It's like, I wish there was tape. I know that they were recording. Like somewhere that tape exists of Death, me in death makeup, but not talking as me, being like ready to fight some fucking purple-haired loser that thinks I actually killed his grandma or something. Thinks like he doesn't realize it's a joke and that it's a character. So yeah, it was a fun / harrowing experience.
Yeah, dude, I can't even imagine like just being in the crowd and be like, "Wait, wasn't that dude just on stage? Oh fuck, is he about to get in a fight?" That's awesome, bro.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. It was crazy.
So did you have to do like an audition or anything before like you got onto stage, or it was just like that producer found you and it's like, "Hey, we need you to be here this time, and we're good to go"?
No, yeah, they made me it was weird. So like they were like, show up to the audition. There's like the big audition where like 10,000 people show up. And they were like, show up and at like 3:00 in the afternoon, and then just give them your name and you'll just go to the front and audition for the executive producers. So I was supposed to skip the whole thing. And then I showed up and I guess they like marked my name down wrong. So I just like waited with everybody for a couple hours and then just went in normally.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm in a room with like 50 people and everybody's doing like 60 seconds of their act. And so it's mostly like little girls, like with a trembling voice singing "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes," like just really heartbreaking, beautiful stuff. They don't sound good, but that's not the point. You're just like, "A dream is a wish." Like you're like, oh my God, I have like tears, like my makeup's running. I do my bit. And then it's one lady, she goes, "Okay, everybody go outside. We're going to pick who goes on to the producers." And usually nobody does. And then at 5 seconds in, she calls to me and she goes, "You weren't even supposed to audition for me. You need to go downstairs and audition for the producers right now." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I walked downstairs and within 5 minutes I was in front of like so they fucked up. So I technically had to audition, but like I was already passed into the next thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did one fake audition and one real one.
Dude, I'm such a sucker for that fucking bullshit they do on that show. They cut it up so well to get the waterworks. And I mean, especially if I'm like drunk or fucking stoned or something, I'm just like, God damn it, that was fucking beautiful. Like, oh, fucking...
Well, I mean, they do a good job of like everybody has like a little sob story, and some people play it up, but it's fine. Like dude, that is a formula that they have perfected, and that's why it's been around for a million seasons, is because like people love it.
Any chance that they ever let Death come back for one of those like champions things or the return?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I know you have a lot of listeners, so everybody keep your it's like you and your mom.
Yeah. Hey, Mom, thanks for listening.
I was gonna do it this year, but then I just didn't think it would work with the last season, and then this season there's like no audience, and I'm like, the whole point is that people get upset and react to Death, and I just don't think it would work if it's just the judges. So I've said no, but once there's an audience back, I'm pretty confident he'll be back.
Look out for that then. I'm super excited to get you back on AGT, or watch you back on AGT. And then hopefully if you're ever around Illinois or close to me, I can come see you live on stage. I would definitely love that. I want to wrap this up here really quick, man. Thank you so much. I want to let you plug whatever you want. So I know you're on that quarantine show, Barely Making It in LA. I really didn't ask you about that. So give me a quick rundown of what that's all about.
Yeah, that's a dormant show that hasn't happened for 15 months and may never come back. So let's not talk about that.
Never mind. Fuck it. Okay. So the host
of my podcast.
Bringing the Backups. New episode dropping, Tuesday?
Yeah.
The 27th on Kellen Clemens. Give us another quick rundown of Bringing the Backups. Let's talk about your podcast.
Sure. So I got a podcast. Every episode we pick a backup quarterback that people will hopefully remember, or if they don't, they can learn about. And I usually get a comedian or a friend to come on, and we either talk sports or comedy or whatever. It's a very chill interview section. But yeah, the show itself, Bringing the Backups, you can check it out. It's on all the social media platforms if you want to follow it there. And then if you want to follow me or see my shows or hop on my newsletter or anything like that, just go to erickhellwig.com is the easiest place. I've got it all there. Erick Hellwig. I spell my name Eric with a CK, hell, like the place you go if you masturbate and don't apologize to Jesus, and then wig, like a thing you'd put on your head. erickhellwig.com for all your Erick Hellwig comedy needs. All right, I'm talking Andy's mom. I'm talking
she's a big fan. She's a big fan.
Andy's dad. I'm talking all the listeners. I'm shitting on you not having listeners, but I don't have listeners either. I
don't fucking have. It just depends on the show. But this was great.
Yeah,
dude, I'm super excited about this. Hopefully we'll have you on again sometime soon. Start a little collaboration here, man. You're fucking hilarious. That was great. One time, we were teasing it all show. Give me your Jeff Monken and the triple option thoughts. That's how we're closing this out,
dude. So look, we were talking about it before we started. You're in Illinois. Are you in Illinois or Iowa State?
I'm Illinois. I'm an Illinois fan. I just related to what you were saying about Iowa State with Sage Rosenfels because Illinois is similar to Iowa State. Well, actually not now. Iowa State's fucking good now. But I'm an Illini guy. And then over here, I went to Illinois State, but I'm from Champaign, and so I've just been an Illinois fan my entire life.
And what are you gonna do? Root for Illinois State again? They're playing like Alcorn State. It's
exactly.
Not
they're playing North Dakota State, like you said, not real.
I mean, actually, Illinois State is a pretty good team. You guys aren't bad for what is Division I AA, but
Missouri Valley.
Yeah, obviously you want to go for the big college that's in your hometown. No, Jeff Monken, I'm an Army football fan. Okay, my dad used to take me to games. He went to West Point, so we moved around a lot in a military family, but we'd go visit my family in Philadelphia and see an Army game almost every year. So that's where my Philly teams and Army football comes from. It's just those are my first memories of going to games. And they were so bad. They were so bad. There was one point where they were because you run the triple option when you have no skill. That's what it's for. to like, it's like basically you're trying to not play football. You're like, is there a way to win the game if we kneel on the ball? That's what triple option football is. It's a very specific way for low talent teams to win. And Army was like, when I was 15, they went, what if we do this? What if we try to become a team that only passes the ball? And they didn't win a game for 3 years. They were like historically bad. Like nobody, because like they're slow. It's a bunch of slow white dudes that are going into the Army. Like nobody has any NFL prospect. Like they were so bad. They were in Conference USA and they were outclassed in Conference USA, which is like it was like a new conference at the time. Like nobody was good in it. It was like Tulane was beating us by like 50 points. So Monken came around. They had reinstalled the triple option, but were still bad. And then Monken turned it around in like 3 seasons. They hadn't beaten Navy, which is like their big rival for like almost 2 decades. Like they had this insane streak. He turned all that around, and now it's like a top 25 program, which is just crazy as an Army fan to think like we can compete against. Like we almost beat Oklahoma 2 years ago. Beat Michigan last year. This year we play Wisconsin. I think we're good. That might be the one. But yeah, like he's just turned it into this great program. And so of course, every offseason they're like, when will Jeff Monken leave to go somewhere else? If he goes to Illinois, I would be happy for him because he's from there. So, and again, because I like underdogs, I do like the Illini. You guys have 0 football, like wins.
Yeah. Well, hey, we beat Wisconsin, 2 years ago when they were number 5. I was at that game. We rushed the field. That was.
I remember that game. Yeah,
that was funny because it was like my buddies and I, we went, and the whole time it was like, oh, like for the whole month we're like, oh, we got tickets, so gonna go watch and beat Wisconsin, like, just sarcastically, like, oh, it's gonna be great. And we just got hammered. We were right next to the Wisconsin section, and it's like near the end of the game, and I have to go take a piss because obviously I've had a few beverages, and I'm like talking shit. I'm like yelling at the whole Wisconsin section. Yeah, here we go. And I trip. I almost fell on my face, like going up the stairs to go to the bathroom. Had the entire Wisconsin fans just laughing at me. Had no credibility the entire rest of the game. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And speaking of Wisconsin, they have Brett Bielema is now the new head coach here for the Illini. So that'll be interesting to see in his first year. But just the underdogs, that is what they are. And I thought Lovey was gonna turn around for you guys. I was like, he had that one season where I think you finished over 500 and you had a couple big upsets. And I was like, he's got the stupid beard. I'm like, maybe that beard has some sort of power. Well, the thing about Lovie Smith is he just refuses to believe that it's his defense sucks and that he did not have the same athletes he had on the Chicago Bears running that same defense. So, but he's with the Texans now, and I could go on for another hour about how much I dislike Lovie Smith right now, but it sucks because I loved him so much on the Bears, and honestly, the Bears probably shouldn't have fired him when they did. But Eric, let's close this out, man. This has been awesome. Look forward to having you back on in the future. Check out Bringing the Backups. I was listening to it all day today. Hilarious stuff from the world famous Death Lives TV, Erick Hellwig. This has been the Brew Party Podcast, episode number 58. So check us out actually on Thursday. We were talking about the draft earlier. Eric was making fun of draft shows. I'm doing a draft show on Thursday night for the first round. But listen, I'm not a numbers guy. So I'm bringing on my friend Tom Scavetta and Hank Indictor from Big Blue Avenue from the Review and Preview Sports Network, and Sam Cardona from the Guru Who Talk Sports. So I'm going to let them be my analytical people and kind of handle that for me, and I'll just run the show. We got 15 different guests coming on. We're going to be throughout the whole first round covering the picks, getting reactions from different fans and stuff like that. So make sure you check that out on our YouTube, youtube.com/The Brew Party, and then on Facebook at The Brew Party Podcast, and then on Twitter at The Brew Party. This podcast is available now on all of those platforms, and then the audio version will be available on Apple, oh my God, I can't fucking talk. Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, all of that good stuff. Check out Eric's work, youtube.com/Erick Hellwig, at Erick Hellwig on Twitter. Check out all of his work for Death Lives TV. And then, of course, bringing the Backups podcast. It's like, I don't want to say it's the same as this because it's not, but it's very similar. Comedy, sports, great mixture of that. I had a great time learning about these random backup quarterbacks that he picks each week, and then mixing in some laughs and then some great comedic friends that he brings on as well. So, Eric, thank you so much for doing this, man. I had a great time. Looking forward to more collaborations in the future. You have a great rest of your night, my man.
Yeah, man. I'm so glad I spent the first 10 minutes of the podcast shitting on draft podcasts. Then explain how in-depth a draft podcast you have lined up. So, yeah, man. Yeah, we'll do it again sometime.
It's all good, man. I appreciate it.